Hi, everyone, and welcome to One Tech World. It's great to be speaking to you today. I'm Justin Arbuckle. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Wealth and Personal Banking at HSBC. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about something I call transformation thinking, and maybe to show a few examples of how that transformation thinking is manifesting in HSBC. So the first thing is, really opportunity. This is what we as leaders should do. And you can see the fantastic new purpose statement from HSBC is opening up a world of opportunity. And as a colleague of mine says, it's opportunity is just one of the most beautiful words. And we all want to take opportunities, make opportunities, create opportunities, but it's hard. Driving change is hard, but what we have to do is we have to agree that this is essentially what leaders do, right? Leaders create opportunity. And this is a particularly important point when we think about diversity. We think about, in particular, women in technology and creating opportunities for an entire generation of young women to position themselves, particularly, for instance, in my profession, which is the engineering profession, the software engineering profession. So opportunity, creating opportunities, this is what we do as leaders. Now, an example that I'm going to use occasionally as we go through this is the example of HSBC Global Money. So as if you follow banking blogs, and I really hope you don't, it's very sad, but if you follow banking blogs, you'll know that we launched recently a product in the United States called Global Money. And the great thing about Global Money, and the reason why I use it as an example today, is it's an exceptionally good example of the kinds of things we're going to be talking about today. And so we've built this product, and obviously we're growing the product, and it was all built by a crazy bunch of people, full of diversity and creativity, and we'll talk a little bit about how we got there. But the basic proposition, just so you have it framed, don't worry, this isn't a product pitch. The basic proposition is to essentially have, as you can see on the picture, to essentially have the ability to be able to spend in multiple different currencies wherever you are in the world, and essentially spend as though you were a local. And that has some wonderful attributes in terms of just opening up the market and making it easier and cheaper for people to move around globally. And there's this underlying concept behind this, and we certainly find this in the banking world, that when we talk about opening up a world of opportunity, it's actually also, we're beginning to see borders come down. So the idea of borderlessness is really important. And that's probably the easiest segue to thinking about obstacles, because if you think about what we as technologists do, we are there to break down obstacles. The job is the obstacle. And what I often say, and I say to all of you who are considering your next career move, it's not that difficult to build new technology on new technology. What is difficult, what is a really meaty engineering problem, is solving engineering problems on code bases that are older than me. And I truly believe that banking, this is why banking is such a special place to work, particularly in the technology space, because we have a perfect confluence of solving customer problems today, very, very real problems. And at the same time, we have this massive legacy, which creates some really interesting engineering problems, sometimes very frustrating engineering problems that need to be solved. But this is the whole idea around technologists. For us, the obstacle is the business. Now, what's interesting when we think about the obstacle being the business is, how do we know which obstacles to solve or to overcome or to face? I mean, there are many different windmills you can tilt at, right? Many different problems you could seek to solve, but how do you know which ones? And I think certainly what I've seen is the secret to understanding the right problems to solve comes from having truly diverse teams, because it's the diversity that helps you understand which problems are really at the core of what the actual problem is, what the actual customer problem is, right? And so, from our perspective, you might have thought that when we're building, a global application and the global money product, you might have thought, the obstacle has probably got something to do with, how do we make it global or something like that. That's not the obstacle. The obstacle actually is, how do we create a proposition that works like a local so that you can pay like a local and behave like a local in every single market. And so understanding what those different problems were, understanding what the different challenges are in the different markets, that is fundamentally, that's enabled by a diverse team. And so that's what I mean when I say that obstacles are really the technologist's business. Now, the next thing that we have to consider, though, is that when we start looking at diversity, what diversity really gives us is it gives us the ability to be able to look at problems in a new way. And I have a great example of the importance of looking at problems in a new way. And it's got nothing to do with banking, you'll be pleased to know. And this is very relevant to lockdown. And that's got to do with toilets. It has to do with the hand dryers that we have in the public toilets. One of the positive things of lockdown has been that we haven't had to experience public toilets. But in every public toilet, there are hand dryers. Now, years ago, if you remember, those of you that are as old as I am will remember when hand dryers used to be very noisy and they used to emit some sort of tepid air, a little breeze over your hands. And of course, they would never dry your hands. Now, as time went on, the obstacle for them was understanding, well, how do we have a small enough unit and how do we dry people's hands? And they thought the solution was to make the air hotter. And of course, it's a classic engineering solution, right? Traditional within that particular part of the engineering community. This is how they solve the problem. How do we make it more efficient to create a hot hairdryer so that it dries the hands? But it turns out, and Dyson weren't the first people to come up with it, but it turns out, and we find it in most public toilets today, we find that the solution is actually not drying the water, but it's blowing it off. So it's the only reason that hairdryers today, or the hand dryers today, have warm air is just so that your hands don't get cold. They solve the problem by virtue of blowing the water off your hands. Now, this was only possible by essentially a set of thinking that was brought from a completely different industry. It wasn't brought from that traditional industry. It was originally brought, from the vacuum cleaner sort of business. It was a diverse viewpoint. It was a new way of working out how to solve these problems. And certainly what we've really seen in putting this diverse team together, which we have, is the incredible thing about breaking down the borders between business, technology, etc. We have a value stream construct. We're all focused on delivering value to the customer. And that's our North Star, putting the customer first. And in that way, breaking down the borders, we enable diversity to essentially exist. We enable diversity of viewpoint to flourish. And this is how we were able to build this product. And you are able to ask some of the people on the team questions in the chat panel when I'm done, because they are in the virtual booth. So diversity is the technologist's tool, but here's the problem. The problem is, and this phrase is originally attributed to a British politician, Lloyd George. It's such an important thing to remember, that when we want to transform, by definition, what we mean is we want to take something that we've already got and make it better, as opposed to creating something completely new and different. So in the context of, for instance, an application in a bank, One of the incredible things that we've managed to do in many places in HSBC, but certainly in the context of this, of the global money application, is it's an application that uses a great deal of fantastic work and some very innovative infrastructure that was already there. But what we've done is it's essentially been repurposed, it's been transformed. Now, this is, in my opinion, the #1 skill that technologists need today. It's the ability to be able to take something that is there and make it new and better, not creating something brand new and letting the old legacy continue untouched, ignored, and probably decaying poorly in the background. So our job is to transform. Now, when we apply this same thinking, when we apply it to thinking about diversity and thinking about the workplaces that we want to create, what does that mean? It means we take the workplaces that we have. It's not just about creating diversity by virtue of saying, well, you know, we need to hire more women. We need to ensure that we have a deeper bench that leads into the secondary and tertiary sector, so we get more women into the workplace. All of that is correct. It also means, however, we have to start with ourselves. We have to start with where we are, and we have to make ourselves, make our mindset, the everyday interactions that we have, make that better. Now, when we start thinking about how transformation applies in an organization, you unfortunately, and this is what it means, you can't cross a chasm in 2 small leaps, meaning you can't pick the bits of transformation, what I call transformation thinking. You can't pick the bits you want. Where, you know, I would like diversity, you know, but at the same time, I'd like to have a super structured sort of organization so that, you know, everyone is clear on what the org chart looks like. You can't pick it all. Right? At the same time, you can't have diversity of thought if you want to have command and control type management. You can't have agile, and you can't have the ability to be able to see code, early prototypes if you wanted to have this structured, waterfall, fragile process. So you can't pick. It has to be done together. So essentially putting the customer first and putting your employees, putting your team first, putting them together, this is really core. You can't pick one or the other. You know, a phrase that I think that I've heard used on this before is, your insides have to match your outsides. If we want to be creative and diverse as an organization and be able to produce product for those wonderful, diverse people out there in the world, we have to ourselves have insides that match that proposition, that match that vision, which is all of the wonderful diversity that we need in order to essentially mirror our customers. And by extension, you need teams that then mirror your customers as well. And that's certainly what we had with Global Money. So I just want to summarize. I want to summarize some of the key things that we've already been talking about. Leaders create opportunity. This is something that I emphasize with my leaders all the time. Our job is to create opportunity. Diversity finds the right obstacles to overcome. Anyone can just go knock down a wall. It's knowing the right wall to knock down or the right door to kick in. You can't cross a chasm in 2 leaps. We have to take it as a whole, the challenge as a whole. We have to make something new, and we have to have new behaviors that go with it. You can't just pick your behaviors. We want to be transformative here, but not here. And of course, your insides must match your outsides. So the proposition that we make to the world at large is always going to be mirrored by the proposition that we make to the humans who work with us and for us in our teams. So with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. We are now available and looking forward to talking more and answering any questions that you might have. Questions are open right there on the chat panel. Thank you so much.